Hey everyone, this is why I like socialism as a developer. As a disclaimer, I'm not an expert in socialism. In fact, I've read the bare minimum of the socialist texts. I'm not an expert in economics. I'm just a programmer, and I have some expertise in programming. These are my opinions based on the little I've read and my lived experience. So, capitalism is locally rational, but globally irrational. What I mean by this is that within a capitalist system, companies and individuals make rational decisions to increase profits. Within the system, these are logical decisions. However, there are many instances of people wanting or needing things that are not profitable. For example, environmental protection. It's not very profitable to reduce greenhouse gases, so it doesn't tend to happen in our society unless we have laws to reduce greenhouse gases. Taking care of the mentally ill. We have a big problem of homeless people in the United States, and a lot of the reason why that's the case is because we don't have institutions set up by the government to take care of these people, and it is not profitable to take care of them, so companies can't just magically make money from taking care of people who are mentally ill. And of course, in a similar vein, there's healthcare, so people who don't have money to pay for life-saving services probably just aren't going to get those services in a more capitalist system because it is not profitable to give services to people who don't have a lot of money. So yeah, that's some reasons why I don't like capitalism in general. I also don't like companies, and the reason why I don't like companies is that they're tyrannical. There's no democracy. Even as like on a team level with a team lead, they have like dictatorial control of what happens. The majority of profits go to senior leadership or the CEO themselves in a company, and I don't think that senior leadership is really working that much harder or harder at all than all the people that they supervise. I do understand that CEOs or founders take on risk and in the early years of the company put in a lot of work. However, I don't think that's a given, as many companies are just owned by already extremely wealthy families and individuals, and they already have the startup capital to start a new company. So, yeah, capitalism incentivizes the rich to get richer and the poor to get poorer. Does this mean that as a developer who doesn't like capitalism or companies that I shouldn't work at them? Theoretically, I would prefer to work at a state institution, the reason being that they are created by the government, which is voted for by us, the people, and so indirectly they are democratic. However, I've worked at a state institution, and my experience is that I don't really like them because the pace is pretty slow, and I'd actually like the pace better at private institutions. Ideally, I would work for a co-op, because co-ops, everyone in the company owns a share of the company, and you also get to vote on company decisions, which sounds awesome. However, I don't really think there's that many co-ops out there, so maybe in the future, as there are more and more co-ops, I will work for one. I've come to the conclusion that I have to work at either a company or a state institution to sustain myself. I do enjoy making more money, and given that American society has a small social safety net, I currently like to work in the private sector to be able to save for my own medical emergencies and life plans despite my political beliefs. Does being a programmer make sense outside of capitalism? Yeah, of course it does. Being a great developer is useful, whether you live in a socialist or a capitalist society. Becoming an engineer in the Soviet Union was seen as a way to advance oneself in society, similar to how it is seen in many capitalist countries. The majority of the ideas we use as developers were developed either through academic research or through open source, both of which are far less focused on profit than companies themselves. So, if I had my way, would I get rid of markets altogether? The answer is no. I just think that the government, which is democratically elected, should nationalize key essential industries like energy and healthcare. These are industries that can provide important human goods, services, and protections, but may not be profitable in a free market, like I mentioned before. I think it's fine to have a free market for non-essential industries. I do think it is important to regulate them, though. For example, if their surplus production. If their surplus production results in severely depleting resources in the case of AI, or heavy pollution in the case of plastic production, let's say. Someone who I like to think about when it comes to all this stuff is Frederick Engels. Frederick Engels was a son of a wealthy textile manufacturer, and he was a true capitalist in the sense that his family actually owned some of the means of production. Yet he was a staunch critic of capitalism because he saw the negative effects that it had on society. And so he supported Karl Marx financially for most of Karl Marx's life, and which allowed him to write the great work of Das Kapital and many other works like the Communist Manifesto. And I think for me, this is the path that makes sense, to continue to work within the capitalist system as a developer, but but to use my resources and energy outside of work to support socialism.